Okay, so art is so solitary. I love making art. But when it comes to exhibiting, it's kind of fun to exhibit with someone else.
I've certainly found it fun. Since this is my first exhibit, I have no comparison. But I agree. I think it is more interesting, the dynamic between the two, and the ability to talk about how to hang, what's interesting. I agree.
Yeah, it just makes it more exciting and dynamic. I like going to art talks, and the ones that seemed most interesting was when there's that dialogue.
Again, I have not gone to as many, but I think that's right, because I think if there's just one person talking, they can be a little self-absorbed. And the dialogue between people does exactly what dialogue is supposed to, opens it up. What inspires you either in general to paint or for particular paintings?
Okay, so that one is, I'm going to talk mostly about the ones that I'm showing here, the roadways. So I've been painting since I was a child, and I guess at age 16 I thought I gotta just, get into it and whatever speaks to me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, the roadways are a series that I started in March 2020, and it was a time that was very limiting. But in the studio, one can do everything. So that's how this series started. And it's evolved to years and years. So the smaller ones are from the March 2020, and these are the recent ones that are acrylic. So in terms of the piece stuff collages, that's different. That's just a specific about our terrible times. So the wish to have peace, so a peace stuff. But mainly the work is abstract, like yours.
We could argue which is more abstract, but they are both, I agree.
Yeah.
And I think they play off each other in interesting ways.
Yeah. In terms of technique, we both are using different techniques, but we're both abstract. Do you want to talk about your technique?
Sure. I have not been painting anywhere near as long as you have. I probably, off and on, maybe over 15 years, did some painting in acrylic, because it's, from my perspective, the easiest media. And dabbled in it for a while, but about 6 years ago, I took a class and was introduced to using a palette knife. And I fell in love with that. And there's an element of the painting that I do is almost therapy for me. But the palette knife gives me the ability to create texture almost immediately. A better ability to play with colors. And when I start thinking about a painting, I mostly think about colors. And what color palette I want and what the mix is. And I follow that as I put the paint on the canvas.
Yeah, that was it. Right, we're both into color. Color is like, I think, the #1 thread through all my work. And also you talked about art healing, and I also see art for myself and for others as the potential for art healing. The only part that's a little bit more than art healing is when, as an artist, I might push myself further, of course, than the art healing part. So I think that's the difference. But in terms of when I've helped others or inspired others, or like the exhibit for children that have cancer, that was really about getting them to do art, but it was also about being a role model of creativity and showing that art is healing for myself and others. So that's where the interplay between myself as an artist and audience, because you asked me about that. How do you paint? Do you paint for yourself, or do you paint for the audience, or both?
I paint for myself. And one of my paintings have really only been seen by my family and a few friends around my house, or I'll show them pictures on my phone. There's an interesting area of difference between us, I think. The using art to heal yourself, teaching art to help others heal themselves makes absolute sense to me. And obviously, people enjoy looking at art and react to it differently, more or less strongly. In terms of healing, thinking, changing people, I think the art of literature, of poetry, of theater can change people. I'm not so sure I think looking at pictures changes people.
Yes, this is where we can agree to disagree.
Absolutely.
So I think as a 10-year-old, when I saw Guernica, Picasso's Guernica, or earlier Vincent van Gogh's Crows, I was so moved by the art and wanted to know if other people are so moved by the art. And the connection for art, through time, that was connected to spirituality and had a place and a purpose in people's lives. And finding that also within myself, if someone sees that in my art or not. So I think of it in that sense. I was very fortunate, as I told you before, that my aunt was an artist, so I had a role model. She was a sculptress and a printmaker. So I knew that that was a possibility, living as an artist and being an artist and meeting other artists. And what is that? There's so many kinds of art. And so, but I'm not talking specifically about a message. When I say I think art can change people's lives, I'm not talking about a specific message. I'm just talking about that it can move someone, and if it's one person or a group of people. So that's kind of my reference point in terms of that.
Again, I think there's some significant differences, but when you talk about Guernica in particular, I would agree there are some paintings that are intended to carry a message, and that message, through that artistic vision, can move people. Guernica's anti-war one is a good example, and you can certainly bring it forward to the poster art of the protests in the 70s and even in the 80s. That was art, and it was meant to, and I think in some instances helped to move people. So sometimes it does, but to be honest, art like yours, I think of great interest. I think art of mine, perhaps of great interest, I don't know yet, can be attractive, can be interesting. Moving people, changing people, that I'm not so sure.
Yes, so I think of it as beauty. Beauty is uplifting. So for me, I need beauty, and I need to uplift myself, and also then I'm able to uplift others. So when I first showed these paintings, the roadways, I was invited to be in Creating in Place and with Analog Gallery. And, it was a time in which I felt like other people, questioning about our times, our lives. And so my father taught me to be a critical thinker, and I thought, yes, my critical thinking goes into art for art's sake, because I'm an abstract painter. Maybe if I was born, in some other time in the 18th century, 19th century, I would have been a portrait painter. But I am of my time, and certainly I do art for art's sake.
When you talk about the benefit of art in beauty, creating beauty. I acknowledge that starts to change myself, because I think seeing beauty in whatever form is an important part. I don't know whether I think it would be changing people, but it is certainly enlivening, enlightening, improving people. So for me, I see a lot of beauty in the world, in nature. And there is an element in my paintings in which, more instinctively than intentionally, I do try and express that. And I think a number of my paintings have some feelings of gardens or oceans or things. A few are different. So in that, I think there is some common ground, and that feeling of beauty, that image and filling you with beauty can come from the kind of art that we do.
Exactly, and I'm inspired by nature too, and the ocean.
Yes.
It's just I've abstracted them, so you can see also the abstract colors, but there are definitely colors in nature as yours. So.
And the one other commonality I think that we have, a very different technique, is a sense of motion. Even your non-roadway ones have a sense of motion, and I think mine, if I'm successful at any rate, do as well.
Yes, so usually in the past I painted a lot more spontaneously, but with this particular idea I needed to plan it out more. So that's maybe the only difference between this series and my previous series. There's still some spontaneity, but it's more planned out.